Having a famous, often used catchphrase is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it might make you cool and memorable. On the other, it might make people want to stab you with a double-edged sword. That's actually where that phrase comes from. This is especially true in the case of video game characters with one repetitive line of dialogue that is so catchy, so annoying or eccentric that we will never ever get it out of our heads. To the point where we may as well say, to hell with it, let's listen to it a few more times in this video. And that is what's happening right now. Don't say we didn't warn you. Also, mind out for spoilers for the following games.
Guard might get nervous. A woman approaches with her weapon drawn.
Sometimes a non-player character is given a bit of general-purpose ambient dialogue that you're bound to hear a bunch of times. Sometimes, like in Skyrim, that line is given to more than one non-player character. Sometimes, like in Skyrim, that line is given to 100 non-player characters. And sometimes that line is so exceptional, so intriguing and so poignant that it stops you in your dragon hunting tracks.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
And thus was born the most memorable line in all of Skyrim.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Whoa, buddy, I'm sorry to hear it.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Not you too? What are the odds?
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
You know, you guys should consider knee armor. Seems like every guard on the continent had a bright future of professional adventuring ahead of them before getting shot in the knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Yeah, and I would have been a prima ballerina if only I hadn't trodden on that Lego brick. According to Skyrim director Todd Howard, you don't actually hear the line that much compared to the other repeated lines from Skyrim's many guards. But the word of Todd is, quote, "It's got more flavour, so I think it sticks out."
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
It sure does, Todd. It sure does.
Hey! Green blood!
Kurt.
And so the day has finally come. My royal fledglings are leaving the nest.
There's no shortage of iconic vintage voice lines that have been bouncing around inside our skulls since the 1990s. You'll be hearing some of them in just a moment. But there's always room for a new earworm inside our gaming brains, and the most recent of these comes courtesy of the very fine fantasy role-playing game Greedfall. Each member of our party of characters has their own story, their own loyalties and their own charm. Mostly Vasco, if I'm honest.
Lively now, lively! Catch me a win!
Each party member also has their own idiosyncratic line of combat dialogue with which you will, over the course of the game's 30 or 40 hours, become very, very familiar.
Bit of poison on my blades. Then let's go!
The one line that sticks in your ear and will absolutely not leave you alone long after the credits have rolled, however, comes from your master of arms with the designer stubble, Kurt.
Move away! Things are about to get dicey! Move away! Things are about to get dicey! Move away! Things are about to get dicey! Move away! Things are about to get dicey!
Yep, there it is.
Move away! Things are about to get dicey!
Kurt's constant forecast of imminent diciness is delivered with such relish that we're not even mad about it. But also, the word dicey has lost all meaning. Dicey. 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 See? Nonsense.
Hello?
Who wouldn't want a fairy companion? They grant wishes, have secret arcane knowledge, and are small enough to fly out my car's exhaust and finally figure out what that rattling noise is. Someone absolutely desperate for a fairy pal to hang out with is Link in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, because he's the only kid in his village of woodland children who doesn't have one. That's remedied at the start of the game, however, when the Great Deku Tree dispatches a fairy to be Link's guide and companion on his perilous adventure. That fairy is Navi, who makes a terrible first impression on the player when she proves herself incapable of flying around a fence. No worries, Navi, I'm sure the great king of evil Ganondorf will be less threatening than a fence. Navi's function in the game is to give you general advice on where to go next, to examine faraway people and objects, and most crucially, to lock onto your enemies in life or death combat. In other words, she's got bloody loads to do, which is what makes it all the more baffling that Navi only has about 3 voice lines for the entire game, which means you're going to be hearing this a whole lot. And this.
Listen! Listen! Listen!
Now, Navi is only trying to help, bless her, but the sheer repetitiveness with which she barks these 2 phrases will have you reaching for a can of Raid. I swear to God, Navi, if you tell me to listen one more time... I am listening! I can't help but listen! You're so loud! By the end of the game, you'll be grinding your teeth to splintery pebbles having heard so much of Navi's barked phrases, and wondering if perhaps Link would have had more luck if he'd remained the boy without a fairy. We do in fact get to see how Link fares without Navi, because the sequel game Majora's Mask starts with him adventuring solo, before this immediately happens. Navi, you can come back now. I promise to listen.
When it comes to having a party in a traditional RPG, there are advantages and disadvantages. I mean, what kind of a party doesn't have chips and dip? Aside from the inadequate provision of snacks, it can also be tricky to juggle the various abilities and needs of all the members of your party. In most video games, we have enough trouble keeping one character alive. And then, in classic fantasy RPG Baldur's Gate, there's specifically the one thing that happens if you're trying to move to a different area while some of your party members are off somewhere else, having lagged behind like a tired child on a long walk. In these moments where the gang needs to be all together and they're not, you'll hear the immortal line,
"You must gather your party before venturing forth."
It's annoying enough that one of your party might be miles away, snagged on a bit of scenery. It's especially irksome though when the game doesn't forewarn you that you're going to need your whole crew present, because some buildings you can enter alone, whereas for others you must, how to put this, gather your party before venturing forth.
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
That's what I said! And there's still no snacks.
Follow that train!
Sometimes an NPC will be given a specific line of dialogue that's only intended for one specific situation, which is fine and good. In the case of this very specific line of dialogue in GTA San Andreas, you might never even encounter this very specific situation, if you happen to be an infallible idol of gameplay perfection. Oh, you're not? Well then get ready to hear a lot of this.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
Yes, it's the notoriously frustrating mission where you and Big Smoke have to chase a train on a bike. And yes, it's the line you get when you inevitably stack it into a tree or a wall and the train gets away and you fail the mission.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
To be fair to Big Smoke, who must be getting pretty sick of stacking it into trees, the line isn't intrinsically annoying.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
But in our memories, it will forever be the sound that signals instant failure and a long slog back to the start of this bloody mission, so the cycle of failure can begin anew.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
Mr. Big Smoke, sir, we're as angry as you are.
Yeah. Don't suppose you got room for one more?
We're in.
In the Kingdom Hearts series, you play Sora, a young Keyblade-wielding hero accompanied by Donald and Goofy.
Sora, Donald, and Goofy.
Yeah, I just said that.
Sora, Donald, Goofy!
Yeah.
Sora, Donald, and Goofy.
Sora, Donald, Goofy yourself. To be honest, this series has a lot of grating repetitions, whether it be one of your team yelling at you as they finally heal you, or shouting attacks as they help you vanquish foes. But there's one repeated line in Kingdom Hearts 2 that really takes the biscuit. When you reach the Herculean world of Olympus Colosseum, it's up to you to slay the massive Hydra that's been wrecking up the place. This is when the fawn, named Phil, tries to help out with a handy hint.
Get up on the Hydra's back!
On its back? Okay.
Get up on the Hydra's back!
Yeah, Phil, I'm trying. This is pretty tricky.
Get up on the Hydra's back! Get up on the Hydra's back!
Okay, you saying it over and over is not helping me do it any faster. Due to the rapid succession of Phil's cries, this line has become infamous to Kingdom Hearts players, flooding painful memories back into the head of anyone that hears it.
Get up on the Hydra's back!
And why did we need to get up on the Hydra's back? Well, it was also Phil could do this.
Get up on the Hydra's back!
All that to throw a pot? I've got a mythical Keyblade, Phil. Why was the pot plan A?
Get up on the Hydra's back!
Phil, I swear by King Mickey, I'll get up on your back and I'll take this Keyblade and I'll...
Star Fox 64 is a game in which you, Star Fox, lead a tight-knit squadron of fighter pilot animals, each teammate bringing to bear a unique and specialised way of really f***ing you off. For instance, there's Falco, an arrogant bird so annoyed at sharing a name with an Austrian 80s pop sensation that he forgets to be grateful every time you save his life.
I guess I should be thankful.
Then there's Slippy, the shrieking toad,
Watch out, Fox!
whose main contribution in your military campaign is getting into distress and requiring rescue with a regularity that makes you wonder how Slippy ever managed to make it through basic training.
Thanks, Fox. I thought they had me.
Maybe his dad is some general who Fox owed a favour? But somehow the most gratingly memorable line in the whole game, arguably in all of video games ever, comes via Peppy Hare, a grizzled old pilot who used to fly with your old pa.
You're becoming more like your father.
Peppy's job in the opening level of the game is to tutorialise you by barking instructions on how to perform your ship's various manoeuvres.
You got an enemy on your tail. Use the brake.
And because Star Fox 64 doesn't let you save partway through, you'll end up playing this first level every single time you fire up the game, meaning each and every line of dialogue will be burned into your memory forever, and none more so than Peppy's weirdly frantic command,
Do a barrel roll. Do a barrel roll. Do a barrel roll.
Perhaps it's the weird urgency with which Peppy delivers the line that makes it stick permanently in the brain, or just the fact Star Fox 64 players have heard it approximately 1 bajillion times. But Do a Barrel Roll is now a permanent fixture of internet culture, a Google Easter egg, and the pride and joy of aviation geeks who can't wait to point out that the manoeuvre Fox performs is in fact technically an aileron roll. Be honest, had you already started writing the comment?
Now, listen carefully. With all these rumours of a dragon... But sir, dragons don't exist. At least, not unless people believe in them.
Normally, one of these list videos would end here, with 7 things. But we couldn't stop before we'd taken Discworld to task for its past crimes. Oh, you thought the statute of limitations had run out? Think again, Discworld. Discworld was a 1995 point-and-click adventure based on the Terry Pratchett novels of the same name about a wizard named Rincewind. Rincewind, in the grand tradition of point-and-click games, spends most of his time stealing anything that isn't nailed down and being rude to people.
Another busy day in the faculty, gentlemen?
With writing by Pratchett himself, an atmospheric soundtrack, and a voice cast of top British comedians including Blackadder's Tony Robinson and Monty Python's Eric Idle, Discworld seems like it would be a joy to listen to. The problem was, Discworld's puzzles tended towards what the back of the box would describe as challenging, and what I, personally, would describe as jog on Discworld, are you having a laugh? This is, after all, the game in which you have to put a frog in the mouth of your past self so you can catch a butterfly, so you can use the butterfly on the street light to trigger a mini thunderstorm in the future, so you can eventually steal a robe. You know, like in the books. Anyway, with puzzles this inscrutable, trial and error was going to be the tool that got most players through the game. The only problem with that is that the developers only recorded one single line for when you tried to do something it didn't understand, and that line was this.
That doesn't work.
You get the exact same "that doesn't work" regardless of where you are, what you're trying to do, or how many times you've tried it already. And believe me, you've tried it already. You've tried it 100 times.
That doesn't work.
I know it doesn't work, Eric Idle. I'm trying my best. Anyway, by the time the game is over, you will, I estimate, have heard Eric Idle say "that doesn't work" 10,000 times. And to be honest, Eric, if we ever meet, this is going to come up. Do you want to meet? I'm free whenever. Does Tuesday work for you?
That doesn't work.
Those were the repeated, eccentric and/or annoying voice lines that really drove us nuts after a while. It was hard to choose, just the 8 in fact, because there are, turns out, quite a lot of them. If you've got a particular anti-favourite, stick it in the comments and let's meet back here for a commenters edition probably. I'm looking forward to that. And in the meantime, why not check out this video from Outside Extra? Luke and Ellen, didn't they do well this video? Yes, they did. Treat them to the reward of watching this video, which is about the jump scares that turned out to be not scary at all, thank goodness. Or maybe watch this video from Outside Xbox, which is about the games that punished you in weird ways for going too slowly. See you next time for more annoying voice lines.